Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here with the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 105-99 win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Ryker, the Toronto Raptors came out to Milwaukee, to Wisconsin, and won on the road. They were down by 14 at the beginning of this game, Ryker. We can win this series with one more win. We have a game at home, we have a game away if we lose it, but the Toronto Raptors can close this out in Game 6.
Well, there's never been people more optimistic than the two of us on the Raptors Digest. We called the series. Some people thought that we were under-emphasizing the impact of the Milwaukee Bucks. Even after the beatdown in the first two games of the series, we still had an extremely confident attitude, and the last three games have proven why. The Raptors, they're electric, and they just continue to exceed expectations. It's incredible to watch, really. It's extremely stressful. I don't know how much more I can take, but it's incredible to watch nonetheless.
Yeah, this game was just absolutely wild. You know, as I mentioned, the Toronto Raptors looked like they were out of it for most of this game. The Milwaukee Bucks came out and they really didn't want to lose this game, but, you know, there's a couple players that really, you know, took off for the Toronto Raptors, and the first one, obviously we know Kawhi Leonard's a beast, and we'll get into him after, but, you know, Fred VanVleet, he's been blessed with the Raptors Digest blessing.
Senior, Ben. Fred
VanVleet Senior. You know, he just had his second child, so congratulations to Fred VanVleet. A young Fred VanVleet Jr. is just born. And he also posted, you know, we made a whole video about how Drake posted one of our pictures. Fred was the first one to really post that meme, so shout out to Fred. It had to be the Raptors Digest blessing, Ryker. He had 21 points, 7 threes, 7 of 9 from the three-point line. The man was absolutely on fire. A plus 28 for the game. What were your just thoughts and impressions on Fred VanVleet's game?
You know, we can look to other sources for why he played so well, but Ben, he had ample time to turn his game around. He had a so-so season, let's put it that way. And then
injuries.
Yeah, 5 games plus 7, so 12, and then the first 2, so 14. He had 14 games before. 14 games to prove himself in the playoffs, and then even in the last 2 games where he played pretty well. Tonight is the first real game that we saw the explosion of Fred VanVleet, and it comes only one day after the big repost, so of course it's not that serious, but it is really cool that Fred VanVleet played well, because him and Kawhi tonight, they were the true reasons that the Raptors were out here able to get it done. That and the stellar defense. Ben, they had 16 points in the first 4 minutes of play. It was 8:07 left on the clock, and it was a 16-2 lead or a 16-4 lead. That pace would have been all-star game. It would have been impossible. And yet somehow, after scoring 16 points in the first 4 minutes, they ended up. What was the final score? Did they even score 100? 101.
105-99, kept under 100.
They didn't even score 100 points, Ben. That defense is out of this world.
Yeah,
but let's keep talking about the individual players. We don't need to switch over. I apologize, but I'm just flabbergasted by how good this.
Well, you made a great point there, and it's very familiar to what happened in Game 1 for the Bucks Raptors series. You know, the Bucks came out and absolutely on fire against the Toronto Raptors. They really wanted to win this game at home, just like the Raptors wanted to win Game 1 of this series. And then as the game kept going along, the Raptors won every single quarter, even though the third quarter was tied. But they kept chipping away. And the fourth quarter was when everything really mattered, and the guy that we fully expect to take over games, to be the best player on this team, to be the best player in whatever series he's in, Kawhi Leonard, he did that. He had 35 points tonight, Ryker, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. The Bucks defense was completely focused in on him, and he just wasn't having any of it. He's been struggling kind of from the three-point line since midway through the Sixers series. He went 5 for 8 from the three-point line, some clutch, dirty dagger threes in the fourth quarter over Brook Lopez and these players. But everything we needed out of Kawhi, he gave it to us tonight. He looked. I know a lot of people were pretty worried considering after Game 4 he looked a bit hobbled, a bit tired because of that game, that double overtime game he played. But tonight he looked fresh, he looked explosive, and everything the Toronto Raptors needed him to do, he did.
Yeah, health was not a concern tonight, at least visibly. He definitely played through it and didn't see any signs to really be stressed or to be worried about in terms of Kawhi and the knee or whatever, the leg. They've really generalized what it possibly could be. But tonight, you're right, he did everything. He stepped outside of what's traditionally his game and facilitated the ball. He almost had 10 assists, like he's 9 assists. Crazy. And he scored 15 points in the fourth quarter, and this is a Bucks team that has been absolutely swarming all over. They've had his number this entire series, and yet they the rest of the Raptors, tribute to them. They've been the real reason that the Raptors were able to fight back in Game 4 and really absolutely destroy the Bucks. So they had to give the respect and allow Kawhi Leonard to get those one-on-ones outside the perimeter, and he made them pay because he was doing it from everywhere. Step back threes over Brook Lopez, driving shots, being confident. It seemed like a lot of the Raptors bigs were unsure of whether or not to go up when they had shots underneath, whether it's off the offensive rebound or they get a good post up. They were still looking to pass out. They didn't want to go and maybe get blocked. Kawhi Leonard was having none of that. He was going up strong every single possession.
Yeah, Kawhi, he's exactly what we could ask for as a Toronto Raptors fans. When he came in here, we were promised a Finals MVP, a guy that would step up during the postseason, a guy that would just do the things he's doing on the biggest of stages. And Ryker, this is the big every game that's played now is the biggest game in Toronto Raptors history. We've never been this close to an NBA Finals. We are one game away from NBA Finals. The closest we have ever been was with Bismack Biyombo in 2016, where we won 2 games in that series. I don't know, Kawhi, the fact that we have a superstar that can just step up on the biggest of stages, it's awesome to see. But the guy that's been there before for the Toronto Raptors, Kyle Lowry, he also had a great game tonight as well. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He had some big shots, 7 for 8 from the free throw line again. He's really focused, locked in, and the same can be said for Kyle Lowry. We don't need him to be, getting 30, 35 points like we need from Kawhi. We just need him to get, be a threat on the offensive end, take his shots confidently, and then, just do the little things. Get people involved, get those rebounds, do those gritty, dirty plays. And, Kyle Lowry's been doing that for the Toronto Raptors. In my opinion, he's had the perfect Eastern Conference Finals that we could expect from Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, and he's certainly proving wrong. The Kyle Lowry is a choker, except for maybe Game 2 of this series. He's performed extraordinarily well, and he's been playing under pressure. I don't agree that Kyle Lowry should have been an all-star this season, just in terms of the offensive talent that there is in the league and the point guard position. But I was saying it's a shame that he's not recognized even more for his defensive abilities because, and his assisting and his everything else, of course. But his defense, he's constantly in the 76ers series as well. Every time they want to put Fred VanVleet out, they need to play him on the smallest man. Kyle Lowry has to step up and guard, whether it's the 76ers series, Tobias Harris or Jimmy Butler, or in this series, Chris Middleton, or even switch onto the bigs. He had a stop on Giannis, I'm pretty sure, at one point in this game. He is playing at... It's his size, his ability to play aggressive, but his defense has been... I don't know if it's... I think it's been understated, to say it frankly. I think that he's able to do so many things out on the court, and even, he started off very sluggish, I think, in the first half in terms of offensive, ability, but he swung it around, and luckily Fred VanVleet was able to step up as well. But you're exactly right. Kyle Lowry has been exactly what we need and more for a second best player on the team, $33 million guy, 5-time All-Star. He has been great.
Yep, certainly. And, the guy that we kind of projected to be our second best player, the guy that's kind of been overtaking him for the second most important. I think Kyle Lowry's still the second most important player for the Raptors, but the guy that's been, overshadowed, the guy that we thought should be an all-star this season over Lowry, Pascal Siakam. Now, he's had an up and down playoff series, especially in these past 2 rounds, ever since he took that calf injury from Joel Embiid. But tonight, he didn't have the greatest efficiency. He didn't have the greatest, wherewithals. He didn't make all of his open threes, but he hit the shots that needed to be hit. 14 points. He got a lot of clutch rebounds, 13 big rebounds with the Toronto Raptors, 3 blocks, and 1 nasty one on George Hill. I'm pretty happy with how this is Pascal Siakam's first ever run as a integral part of a championship caliber team, and I think he's doing a solid job. Yes, he hasn't lived up to the star potential, being the second best player, but in games where he's even struggling, I think he's doing a good job at just staying confident, attacking the way he can. The shots aren't really going down, but he still took 7 threes tonight, and he made a couple really big ones in the second half. What are your just thoughts and impressions on Pascal Siakam's game tonight?
I made the comment, hot take, it was very hot, I received a lot of backlash for that one, that he was the most consistent player. And what I meant by consistent was that night in, night out, he's going to give you around the same amount of points. Now, the best player, obviously, Kawhi Leonard, but since I guess halfway
honestly,
through.
ever since you said that.
Second series. No. He was definitely still very consistent in the first series as well. But since 76ers, he's fizzled off because of his inexperience and a lot of those things. But he has still been impactful, right? Last game, he kind of disappeared. But tonight, you're right. And I think all three of his blocks came in the fourth quarter, or at least they were very well-timed blocks. You know, they stopped important, crucial
momentum
baskets.
changers.
Exactly. So even though he's not putting up the points that we would like night in, night out from a second-best player on the team, other guys, thankfully, have stepped up every night. Funny enough, a different guy every night, right? We're not getting consistently the same best player. Some nights it's Kyle, now Norman Powell. He kind of didn't have as big a game as his last two games. Fred VanVleet finally. Marc Gasol had a good game. Now he's back to doing nothing. So it's really all around the radar. But what I want to talk about before I guess we get into segments, if we're doing those, two things. Okay. Number one, the Raptors, I thought that it was going to be, in the words of the great Charles Barkley, it was going to be a punch in the mouth. I thought the Bucks were going to come out really strong, and the Raptors, right away, they got 3 turnovers. And I thought this could be a challenge, you know? But after that, after those first 3 turnovers in the first 4 minutes of the game, they finished the game with only 3 extra turnovers for the final, how many minutes is that? 36 plus 4, 8. Math, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm probably way over. But anyways, you get the point. They really controlled, just their slowing down the pace in their brain. They didn't play sporadically, and I think that makes a big difference because the Bucks, in their best, are a fast break team, right? Coming off turnovers, coming off bad shot attempts. So I'll get your opinion on that. And then 2, Drake has been a hot topic for his antics, I guess, on the court. Milwaukee is very displeased with him. What do you think about 1, the turnovers, and 2, Drake?
Well, the turnovers, when the Milwaukee Bucks are playing at a fast pace, they're an unstoppable team. They're the best team in the NBA when they're playing at a high, rapid pace. Giannis is unstoppable in the open court. Even Bledsoe, we saw a couple times tonight, he got cooking when the game was playing really fast. Milton, Brogdon, these guys can hit these, contested pull-up transition shots. But the Toronto Raptors, you mentioned it. The start of the game, the Bucks forced some turnovers, and they played at their style. But as soon as Nick Nurse called a key timeout at the beginning, midway through the first, at the same time you mentioned it, and then from that point forward, the pace of the game was at the Toronto Raptors, the way the Toronto Raptors wanted to have it. Both teams went on runs, but the pace of the game suited the Toronto Raptors better. And, that's why the Toronto Raptors, they only had 6 turnovers this whole game. That's a very impressive number for such a high stakes. A lot of players have jitters in these types of moments, but, we have a lot of playoff savvy veteran players, and they controlled the flow of this game. And it was just great to see. The Bucks, they haven't really faced much adversity this season. They've been steamrolling people all throughout the year. They haven't faced Giannis. They faced adversity the last couple years, but with Bud, with this group of guys, they haven't faced a challenge like this. And the Toronto Raptors, they showed that when they faced adversity after 2 games down, they could bounce back. And then when the Bucks faced adversity, you mentioned it, a lot of the things that they brought up were, instead of the game happening, a lot of things surrounding Milwaukee was Drake. They're bringing up these sorts of weird things. The Toronto Raptors showed that they're the more mentally tough team. At least tonight, we'll see if Milwaukee's able to bounce back and get a big win in Toronto. But for now, the court is in the favor of the Toronto Raptors, and the Bucks, they're showing like they're an inexperienced team compared to the Toronto Raptors. Now that could change, and the Raptors might collapse. But and I think a part of that could be the Drake thing, because we saw Coach Bud. Now he was asked kind of a weird question, so I won't completely blame him, but that was a huge topic of discussion. And Drake's out here, he's got the antics going, and maybe in Game 6 he'll be able to take them out of the rhythm even more, because Giannis's ex-agent, he's out there talking about it. I made a whole video breaking this stuff down, but I'm excited to head back to Game 6 and see what the Raptors can do on their home court.
Absolutely. Now, surprising enough, the Bucks, 2 things. This is the first time this entire season that they've lost 3 in a row. So the Raptors, they're treading into brand new territory here now in competition against the Bucks. So they're doing really good things against the number 1 team in the entire NBA. And 2, funny enough, the Milwaukee Bucks shot 45% from the field to the Raptors 36%. So they actually outshot them by a good margin. But the Raptors decimated the Bucks tonight in 3-point shooting. A lot of that attributed to Kawhi Leonard and Fred VanVleet shooting at a really high percentage. So I think this can only get better. Hopefully. I mean, they could obviously drop the game, but it can only get better at home when the fans are actually cheering the Raptors along. But Ben, do we even have time? Do you want to do the segments?
Yeah, let's swing into the segments tonight. The Kawhi Doom, like that play of the day. It's got to go to that step back. At least for me, Riker, it's got to go to that step back three Kawhi Leonard had over Brook Lopez. It was a shot that completely swung the momentum for the Toronto Raptors. Fred VanVleet just hit a bucket. There's so many shots that could be attributed to that run, but this is the one that was so difficult. It was such a big baller shot. It was such a shot that, that's only a shot a superstar could make, and just watching it had me baffled. You just scream like, this is the greatest player I've ever seen. Obviously, that could be a controversial take, but in the moment, you're just dumbfounded by the star power Kawhi had. And watching that shot, watching all the shots he had in the fourth quarter, he's getting the Kawhi Doom like that for me, Riker.
That's perfect to me, Ben.
Yeah, certainly, but not all plays can be the Kawhi Doom like that play of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And tonight, the OGs, we gave a lot of credit to Pascal Siakam, how he's been performing. Obviously, he hasn't lived up to the perfect standards, the high expectations we had, but he certainly hasn't choked. He certainly hasn't completely fallen off the map. But one possession, he had a drive. George Hill was underneath the rim. He did one of his classic spicy pea spin moves, and he brought it to the rim. It seemed like he had one of those usual layups that he always makes over smaller defenders, but instead he did he said, I'm gonna kick it out to a three-point shooter, did like a 360 in the air, didn't see anybody, tried to huck it up, and ended up just hitting all backboard. That play certainly made me say, oh, geez.
Was that on George? I thought that was on Giannis Antetokounmpo in the fourth quarter.
I know George Hill was there. Giannis maybe came behind from help.
But that was like late fourth quarter, right?
Mid? I'm not 100% sure of the time period.
Okay, but it was in the fourth.
I believe so.
I was ready to blame the game on Pascal Siakam because I think it was a 3-point game, and if he had to just go up strong, but he instead, he got in the air. I'm almost certain it was against Giannis, and that's why I think Giannis has property in Siakam's brain. If he just played confident, what's the worst that happens? You get blocked, right? Because it doesn't matter. You get blocked, or best case scenario, if you're going up for a dunk, people usually, as my roommate says, they usually step out of the way, or you get fouled. And that's what Kawhi Leonard was doing, and it worked out for him every time. Siakam just needs to be more confident, man, because that was a wacky play.
Yeah, certainly. Confident Siakam. Whenever the boys are confident, they're playing better. But finally, the one guy that we have to really talk about, Riker, with the infamous, the one and only DeMar Carroll Gold Star Award, Danny Green, Riker. We're waiting for him to turn a corner. These whole playoffs, he's had some good games against Philadelphia. The Magic, he had a couple good games, but Danny Green, we're looking for that guy that, maybe not necessarily broke finals records for threes, and maybe he's banking on the rest of the Raptors bringing us to the finals so he can really, really burst out onto the scene. But, the playoff tested Danny Green, he's really just disappeared this whole series. Nick Nurse and despite the fact he's such a great defender, Nurse only played him 16 minutes. He was a minus 17 in the 16 minutes he played, had 0 points. It's kind of baffling to see how wild Danny Green's collapse has been this postseason, especially in this Bucks series.
Well, you tell me, Ben, what has to be done? Does he need to be shifted out of the starting lineup? Will he bounce back? I'm just as dumbstruck as you, because Danny Green is a veteran, and you don't expect this kind of play from a veteran that's competent, especially been playing on such a good team in the San Antonio Spurs for the majority of his entire career. I'm not sure if he got drafted to the Spurs, I believe, or
he was drafted he ended up getting picked up by the Cavs, played there 1 year, and then went to the Spurs.
Yeah, so the majority of his career on a fantastic team. So he should be able to step up in this sort of limelight, this sort of situation. So what needs to be done?
Well, I don't think you take him out of the starting unit. That's, and a lot of people were calling for Fred to be gone. Honestly, as big of a fan of Fred as I am, even I thought he could be unplayable with the fact that, he's missing all the shots. But I don't think you completely take him out because I don't think there's a player you replace him with. And Norman Powell's done such a good job of being a spark off the bench. I don't think you really change that. But you certainly got to give more minutes to Norman Powell if Danny Green is struggling. Give more to those bench or more minutes to Kawhi, more of those wing players. But and Fred VanVleet had 37 minutes tonight. If he keeps playing like this, you got to give him more run. But I'm expecting Danny Green. I can't see him continuing to do this. I know I've been saying this probably for the past 5 games, but Danny Green, it's not like the Raptors' strategy has changed and Danny Green's not getting any open looks, especially at the beginning of this one. He had an open corner 3. He had like 2 open corner 3s, which, in the regular season, you and I joked about how if Danny Green has a shot in the corner, it's automatic. He doesn't miss those. And then, he had one that was kind of a rhythm shot that Kyle Lowry gave him, and he missed that. They're all kind of in and out. It's just weird to see Danny Green miss all these shots, and they're all close. So I think once 1 or 2 go in, he'll be fine. He'll get bounced back because he is a veteran. He's a guy that can be played. He's not one of those players that is infamously impossible to play in the postseason. I know some Spurs fans have come out, and there's been a kind of a wave of hate on Danny Green, saying that he does this every now and then. But Danny Green's a 45% three-point shooter, and I expect him to turn the corner, whether it be, I think especially at home, if he can get a rhythm going in Game 6, I expect him to bounce back.
Well, you said it'll take one or two. He hit one clutch shot, I think, in the Game 3, because he missed all of his shots until the fourth quarter. And then he said to Nick Nurse, keep me out there. I know I can hit one. And he hit a pretty pivotal three-point shot because it was a very close game, obviously the double overtime game. So hopefully he can turn it around, but I think he needs 2 shots to get his confidence back. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot to talk about this game, a lot to break down. But we're bringing it back, as you said, bringing it back to Toronto, and there's a very good opportunity now for the Raptors to move on in 6 games, as we both predicted before the series started.
Yeah, Ryker, how wild would it be for us both to make a prediction and it to come true, But I'm fully, I expected the Raptors to be able to bounce back. Even when we were down 0-2, we thought the Raptors would bounce back and win in 6. And, they have a chance to do it. They have to be able to close out. I fully expect it to happen, but I'm not calling for it. I'm not saying the series is over by any means. But, the Toronto Raptors have playoff tested. We have Kawhi Leonard. We have a lot of players that are really out here. And, I'm expecting big things to happen for Game 6.
Absolutely, Ben. I think that's it for me if you want to conclude it.
For sure. You guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. As we mentioned, Drake posted one of our photos on Instagram, so follow us on there. Follow Ryker and I, our personal accounts as well. I've been shouting out everything, Ryker. Do you have any last words?
I'm getting real sleepy, man, but this is going to be some sweet dreams tonight.
Certainly. The game burnt us out, but, well worth the watch.
Absolutely. You might hear the car alarms in the back, so I apologize for that. But other than that, cheers.